All right. Breaking news. QB1 has been announced, and we are going to break down the decision from Shane Beamer that LaNorris Sellers will be the starting quarterback for the South Carolina Gamecocks in the 2024 season. Locked on Gamecocks starts right now.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome into a special bonus episode. I'm your host, Chris Marler, and we have some breaking news. We have multiple things that are breaking news, to be honest. You can see on the top of my head right now, if you're watching on YouTube, a lot of big news delivered today. One of it by Amazon, delivering this beautiful hat that I got peer pressured and bullied into buying in the comments, even though I'm on vacation. But along with the hat came some other good news. And that was not just Amazon delivering, that was Shane Beamer delivering on the news that the South Carolina Gamecocks have announced that their QB1 for the 2024 season is none other than LaNorris Sellers. It tells me a couple things. I'll tell you what, one thing it does tell me, guys, you're a smart fan base. This is something you guys have been telling me and screaming from the rooftops, it seems like, since the beginning of the year, or since the beginning of when I took over here in July. There was a lot of, what you would call a pre-play type thing, window dressing, a lot of smoke and mirrors, and a lot of overreaction on social media as well, based off some of the things we saw early in fall camp with, Robby Ashford getting a lot of reps and then trading back and forth, neither Dow Loggins nor Shane Beamer announcing until today, like I said, after the first two scrimmages, who QB1 was going to be, even though, like you guys said repeatedly, it was going to be LaNorris Sellers, and it was going to be LaNorris Sellers all along. I think it's a great move. I still think it's phenomenal QB room that you're going to have with Robby Ashford as a backup, and we'll get to that later on as well. This is a brief episode. It's just breaking news. So bear with me, because this is the first time I've had to do this for Locked On. We might have some hiccups, and we are brought to you by two sponsors as well, Ibotta and FanDuel, which we will get into a little bit later. To be honest, we're going to put the sponsors on the back burner for a minute, because I want to get right into the meat of the show and talk about what this means, not only for LaNorris Sellers, but also for South Carolina. So we'll start with that. We'll talk about Shane Beamer and what he said during his press conference today and what went into the decision to name LaNorris Sellers as starting quarterback. We are also going to get into what I think it personally means for what this offense is going to look like throughout the season. We're not going to get too deep in the X's and O's and all that kind of stuff, but I do have a much better feeling. You're starting to see the pieces of the puzzle come into place. And I think that you're starting to see what I think, what this is going to mean for not only Sellers, not only the offense, not only your OC and play caller, Dow Loggins, but one assistant coach in particular that I think is going to have a heavy influence in the style of offense they are going to run with LaNorris Sellers manning the show as QB1. So, like I said, the announcement was made earlier today. Shame on me. I said this is the third time we were recording a podcast in less than 24 hours. I mean, within 12 minutes of finishing the first show that we did today earlier with Barrett Slee. I encourage you guys to go check that episode out. It was a lot of fun. But within like 12 minutes of the show being over, Beamer announces that LaNorris Sellers is going to be your starting quarterback. And let's get into some of the stuff that he said during his press conference about why he chose Sellers as QB1 over Robby Ashford. So one of the first things he said was, and this is a direct quote from Beamer, listen, obviously God blessed him with a lot of abilities. You're talking about a guy that is close to 240 pounds and runs really well. He's a winner. My dog says hello. You look at what he did in high school, leading South Florence to a state championship as a senior. He's a competitor. You see a guy that's coming off back off an injury that he had in high school. Some of the things I've seen him do out there on the field. He's just an unbelievable young man. He comes from a great family. And I think you take all those qualities and you add just his poise and consistency day in and day out. There are a lot of things I like about him. I think that last part is what stands out to me the most in the first thing that Beamer said, right? And we're going to get to more things that he said, but in that first paragraph, the thing that stood out to me the most, that poise and consistency comment is what he continues to say about LaNorris Sellers throughout fall camp, especially. I mean, LaNorris Sellers is here. He is just here. Even as can be, nothing is like, it doesn't feel like the moments in practice, at least so far, has been too big for him. He is constantly aware of his surroundings, aware of the moment, and he seems to have a really, really good, I think, ahead of his years type of awareness for what is going on around him. And that's kind of rare to think about, like to that level for a redshirt freshman quarterback that's only been in the system for, basically a year and a half. That's the first thing he said. The other part was a question that said that somebody in the audience and media brought up, hey, what went into this decision specifically? And Beamer had a lot to say about that. He said it's a little bit of everything, right? It's stuff on the field. We put our guys in different competitive situations and as many different competitive situations as possible. I'm telling you, side note, the attention to detail that Shane Beamer has had in this preseason camp, I feel like is so much different than what he's had the past couple of years. And the focus he's had on all these potential, like he has covered so many of his potential bases and scenarios that he will see throughout the year. Anyway, he said, we mixed up who got to work with the first group and the second group. It is summertime. The team is together all summer themselves and are able to do some things with them. It is the time they spend in the meeting room with Dowell, which means a lot. It's also Dowell evaluating everything in the meeting room, evaluating everything on the field. Certainly, it's how they manage the offense, the mechanics of stuff, you name it. It is a lot that goes into the certainty. There's also a gut aspect of it as well, but a lot that goes into it. I brought this up on after the first scrimmage, and I said, one of the things that stood out to me the most about the way they ran the scrimmage was they mentioned that Robby Ashford got some reps with the ones. LaNorris Sellers got some reps with the ones and the twos. What that told me right away, because that was the exact phrasing, and everything at this level is by design. I don't think that Beamer had to slip up saying, like, anything that was hidden in that message. I think it was very direct, as he tends to be, and most college coaches are. Everything's by design at this level. You have to be. And what that told me, and I brought it up on that show, was he's running with the first and second team, and he's getting as many reps as possible. And I go back to what you guys have said in the audience more than anyone. From day one, if you guys had a feel that this was the guy, and it's not just because Beamer said coming out of spring game that he was going to be the guy. It's not. This guy has shown time and time again, and he was pushed by Robby Ashford, believe that. But he has shown time and time again he was not going to relinquish this role. He's been a great leader, right? And especially at his age, which is crazy because that's not the easiest thing to do, to find your voice in a locker room full of grown-ass men, especially at that age. He's been able to do all of that on top of being one of the better and more athletic quarterbacks, not only on this roster, of course, because Ashford is too, but he will be in the SEC. That's the kind of athlete he is. Like people have, we're not going to get into this because it's only going to piss me off, and I do it too much on all the other episodes, admittedly, but people just continuously dismiss everything at South Carolina, just constantly. And this is not some throwaway, former three-star. This isn't Rudy or some crap. Like, this is a 4-star quarterback from the state of South Carolina that stayed home to become the starting quarterback for the state school. This is not some rags to riches against all odds story. This is an elite, potentially elite quarterback. So the other part of it was this, and he was asked about specifically, about Robby and will he be in the mix for what's going to be happening moving forward. And I want to bring this up because I thought it was a really cool point that he made. Robby Ashford is a kid from Hoover, Alabama that went to Oregon, went to Auburn, became the starting quarterback at Auburn under arguably the worst head coach they've had there in program history. That kid is a tireless worker. He's a phenomenal athlete. He could have been a 2-sport star. I think he's supposed to play baseball at Oregon as well. He's a very, very good athlete that I said this a couple days ago. This had nothing to do with like, oh, well, the starter's doing this and the backup is kind of closing the gap. Both of these guys were benefiting and pushing each other, but benefiting from the iron sharpening iron situation that was this quarterback competition throughout fall camp. So can't speak enough about how great of a job Robby Ashford did to get LaNorris Sellers into the situation and also himself into a situation because he's going to see the field. But this is what Beamer had to say about that as well. He said, I told Robby the other day, listen to this is really cool. He said, one of the cooler moments I've seen this season, they're in a red zone competition at period last week, and they were down to, I think, like the last one, like last rep or whatever, and whoever scored next was going to win. LaNorris threw a touchdown pass to win it, and the first offensive player you see coming off the sideline to celebrate in the end zone is Robby Ashford. He said, you saw Robby. I told him it was a pretty cool moment right there. The other quarterback throws a touchdown pass to win the period, and he's the first guy out there celebrating with his teammates. Let me tell you why that's important, guys. Robby Ashford isn't from South Carolina. Robby Ashford hasn't been on this team for, longer than a few months. I mean, well, this year. Robby Ashford didn't grow up dreaming to go to South Carolina. I mean, this is his third stop. To have that kind of stick-to-itiveness and that kind of commitment to your team is something I hope all the fans that are hearing this right now and that are going to watch him play this year appreciate, because you should. That's rare. In this day and age in college football, and I understand this is his third stop, like I just said, and he's transferred and blah, blah, blah. It wasn't like he transferred and was being given a starting job. He could have gone somewhere to do that if he wanted. He chose to come to South Carolina. He chose to sit here and get into a position that he probably knew it wasn't necessarily his to win. But he stayed. It's like that old Bo Schembechler quote from Michigan way back in the 60s, like, those who stay will be champions. I don't know if they'll be a champion, but this kid, from a competitive standpoint, you can't really ask for much more. You just can't. Now, that's all we have from the press conference today. That's, again, LaNorris Sellers will be your starting quarterback. I'm fired up about it. We're going to get into a little bit of what I think this means big picture-wise following the break. Before we do, I do want to give a quick shout-out. I'm trying to keep this as ad-free as possible for you guys, because I know it's only going to be hopefully a 15, 20-minute show. But listen, real quick, I do want to give a shout-out to our friends at Ibotta. They do a tremendous job in getting you money, which is not something a ton of companies do. But Ibotta is definitely one that has done a tremendous job with this. Listen, like, it is a free app. It is a free app, okay? And they have a tremendous offer right now. If you are like me and you're saving up for a big expense, like whether it be dinner, a airfare somewhere, or a dream vacation, whatever, sign up for Ibotta today. They give you a direct cash back. And I don't mean like points cash back, guys. I mean, like, they give you cash back that you can withdraw from your account or from their account into your actual bank account, right? You can start today. You can start making money today. And it's not just your bank account. You can withdraw to PayPal or gift cards or whatever you want. But it is something you can help save on over 2,400 brands, over 1,000 stores, whether it be groceries, shopping, whatever, places like Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Make sure right now that Ibotta is offering listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta and using the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. Go to the App Store, download the app for free, right? Register, start earning cash back. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege. That's IBOTTA and LOCKEDONCollege today. All right. That is all for our first segment. I want to get into this next part real quick because I think it's very interesting. And it's now that we have a starting quarterback, we can start getting into putting the pieces together of what we think this whole thing is going to look like. And what I think this is going to look like is heavy RPO and putting this kid in a position to succeed. You have some really, really good players around him. You should have the most improved offensive line maybe in the SEC, like in the whole conference. Like South Carolina and Alabama should have the two most improved offensive lines in the entire conference. Like, barring any sort of INJURIS. Oh my God, I spelled injuries wrong. Jeez, Chris. Goodness. Somebody clip that. INJURIES. That's an all-time fail. But no, like, barring anything like that, this should be a really improved offensive line up front in front of Sellers. What does this look like? You think about the strengths of what this offense should have. The running back depth. You got also a lot of veteran presence at the running back position. The biggest question mark on this entire team. And there's some spots that you do have question marks, right? Like, I don't think you have a ton on the offensive line. I don't think you have a ton, hardly at all, on the defensive line. Not a linebacker, not in the secondary. You might have some questions of who's going to start, but you don't have a ton of question marks like you do at receiver and tight end, right? Like that's a ton of production you got to figure out how to replace from last year. Who's going to do that? The quarterback's best friend on the passing game is the running game, guys. And going into a situation where you have Sellers who can run and is 6'3", 240, and oh, by the way, his backup is the same size. Like, now you have a situation where you can get into an RPO-heavy offense, and also you have Oscar Attaway, and also you have Rocket Sanders, and also you have all these other guys that you're bringing in. an All-American from South Carolina State, the kid from North Texas. You got Rocket Sanders coming from Arkansas. It makes the most sense if you think about it. I did say this the other day. It's like, I wonder when they play teams like LSU, like, are they going to throw the ball 30, 40 times in that game and try to expose what was a horrible defense a year ago and a pass secondary or pass defense in their secondary? Maybe. But I think overall, the identity this offense is going to have is going to play to the strengths of a quarterback. I've brought this up before. You'll probably hear me bring it up 5 times again this year. One of my favorite stories I've ever heard about Lane Kiffin and what his philosophy is on offense. Lane Kiffin's telling a story about when he came in to be an analyst for Alabama after they lost in the kick six, right? And Saban brought him in. They've got Nussmeier there, who's the OC, and they're sitting there. He's like, all right, they're asking Lane, like, what could they do differently, blah, blah, blah. And Lane he's like, this is not difficult. And he draws up on the board 5 different numbers, and he circles them and he hits them. He's like, hey, these are your best players. Get them the ball. Like, LaNorris Sellers is a really, really gifted athlete. He's one of their best players, right? Get him the ball and then put him in positions. They kind of get the ball as a quarterback. Put him in positions to let his strengths come out every single Saturday. And I think as of right now, like, sure, I think he's going to be a better passer than people think. The fact that he got left off the preseason quarterback yardage prop that Prize Picks put out, that was like, all right, they put out like 12 different names from the conference. LaNorris Sellers is nowhere on there. The lowest total they had was 2,000 yards. LaNorris Sellers is going to have over 2,000 yards passing. But again, put this kid in positions to be successful. And where that is in the RPO game, in my opinion. Now, that brings me to my next point. Dowell Loggins is your play caller. But the biggest addition this program has made all offseason, the biggest addition they made all offseason, in my opinion, isn't Josiah Thompson. It isn't anyone off the edge. Oh my gosh, hold on. Thought I was about to have a coughing spell there, but it's none of the freshman phenoms you had in your recruiting class. It is nothing like that. It's not anybody brought in from the portal. The biggest addition and strength and off-season acquisition, for lack of better words, that this team made was Shawn Elliott. Shawn Elliott and what he has been able to do. I know he's only coaching tight ends, right? So one, you're going to see an instant upgrade there because he's one of the best coaches, I think, in the country. He left a head coaching job to become a position coach in South Carolina. You had your most successful years here in this program, in program history, when he was a part of it. And oh, by the way, you were a little bit more RPO heavy back then. Now, you don't have the same type of – you don't have a Lattimore at running back necessarily, right? But you've got some really, really talented players back there, and you've got a guy who we love Connor Shaw, we love Dylan Thompson. Athletically, LaNorris Sellers is a better athlete than those two. I'm not saying he's a better winner. I'm not saying he's going to be a better quarterback. I'm not saying he's going to finish his career without a single loss at home or ever go undefeated against Clemson. But I'm saying athletically, I don't think it's a crime to say that LaNorris Sellers is a better athlete than those guys. You're going to be RPO heavy, I think, in this offense. And Shawn Elliott is going to be a guy that I think this offense and this coaching staff will lean on in so many different ways because the strengths that he provides as an assistant coach and just being on staff, a toughness, the tenacity, his grit, like a showing up day in and day out and just getting the blank after it. Shawn Elliott, the numbers and improvement that they had, we did a show on this. I encourage you to watch it because it's one of the best shows we've done since I've been on here. I'm not just saying that. But we did a deep dive into looking into Shawn Elliott and what he did while he was the head coach at Georgia State when they moved into what is this? Then they moved into under his era as the head coach. The improvement that they saw specifically in the run game because they were a run happy and run focused offense, night and day. Finished top 15, I believe, or top 23 the last 4 years. They were top 10 one year. Like averaged around 200 yards of offense or 200 yards of rushing offense while he was there. I mean, you have the tools to do that. Get your best playmakers the ball. Get QB1 in the most potential situations for him to be successful and this offense to be successful. Because I tell you what, guys, Not a lot of people outside of Columbia understand this, but we all do. That defense is going to be tough. That defense is going to be tough. You're not going to be putting up a ton of points in that defense. Go out and get yourself 24 to 28 points a game. See if you can get 30 points a game, 28, 27, 28 in SEC play, because that defense is going to be really good. I tell you what, I'm excited. I'm excited. I know y'all are as well. I think it's a huge day. This 10 to 12 minute episode went on for 21 minutes because of course it did, because I was talking. Listen, I do want to tell you guys this real quick. I appreciate y'all so much. This has been so much fun for me to take on this new role. Like, as somebody that lives in Lexington, family around Columbia, sister went to USC. I am so proud that I get to talk about this team, and so excited I get to interact with you guys on a daily basis about it. And it's been so much fun so far, and I'm excited that we get to start doing it for the entire season. So without getting too emotional on it or anything like that, I just want to say thank you very much to you guys, because I've really, really enjoyed it so far, and I can't wait to enjoy it even more as the season goes on. So hope you guys have a phenomenal rest of your Tuesday. Make sure you are checking out our good friends also at FanDuel as well. FanDuel, I told you about this. They're doing an incredible promo right now where it's like, if you make a $5 bet, $5, guys, make a $5 bet, you get 3 weeks of NFL Sunday Ticket for free. You just have to sign up through either YouTube or YouTube TV account. You just have a Google account to do it, and then a working credit card. So make sure you're doing that as well. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode. We're not going to do three in one day tomorrow. I'll promise you that. But have a fantastic day. Appreciate y'all. We'll talk to y'all then.